I'm Sara Miller McCune, the founder and chairman of the board at SAGE Publishing. And it is my great honor to have with us today Carol Dweck, professor of psychology at Stanford University, one of the great universities of the world, as our guest. So, Carol, my first question for you is, why did you choose to become a psychologist? And then, more specifically, I think, why were you drawn towards social psych and personality and developmental psychology?
Well, to answer the first part, I loved thinking about people. And when I went to college, I fell in love with the scientific method. And the whole idea that you could apply the scientific method to people, to figuring them out, to the laws of behavior, that was irresistible for me. The idea that you could think about people as a profession and then figure out how they work, well, that was what I wanted to do. Why social, personality, developmental? Those are the areas that really try to characterize people, how they work, why they work that way, how they got to be like that. And that was something that I had always been interested in. Even as a child, I thought, why do adults act like that? And how can I find my way around them? How can I make them think and feel the way they want to think and feel, but do what I want to do?
Really?
I did.
At what age?
Remarkably young.
Oh dear. What motivated you in your research, and why do you think you were led in that direction?
Yes. I think I had a formative experience. My sixth grade teacher seated us around the room in IQ order.
Oh my God.
And she let us know that she essentially thought a student's worth, not just their intelligence, but their character and their worth in general, was captured by that number. Now, I happen to be in the first row, first seat, which you might think is a good thing, but it practically scarred me for life. I always wanted to document that I was smart. I felt I couldn't be special if I wasn't smart or the smartest. I shied away from challenges that might make me look like I wasn't smart. So I felt that this whole idea of IQ and fixed IQ was something I wanted to figure out. And I wanted to figure out how to help kids and also adults retain or regain that tremendous zest for learning that we're born with.
That's fascinating. And when you say you felt that you were practically scarred for life, in a negative way?
Yes. So again, in that class, I was the winner of the IQ lottery, but it wasn't a good thing for me. It made me feel I had to keep proving that I deserved that ranking. And I recognized that could have really limited what I accomplished in life. Because if you're protecting an image, if you're always wanting to be smart, you don't stretch out of your comfort zone, you don't take on challenges and new learning. That could really limit what you strive for and what you accomplish in the long run. And it was through my own work that I broke through that.
I got singled out also in New York and was put into what was called at the time a special progress class, in which we did 3 years work in 2 years time.
I was in the same
So
program in New York City.
Oh my God, where did you grow up?
In Brooklyn.
I grew up in Queens. Okay, so this happened to
Mm-hmm.
me. It happened to both of us. And I had exactly the opposite feeling,
Mm-hmm.
that this was an opportunity,
Mm-hmm.
and it meant I wasn't going to be bored.
Yes.
And I wasn't bored until my senior year in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was bored also in my senior year in college.
Mm-hmm.
Did that happen to you?
Well, before the 6th grade, when we were tuned in to find gradations in IQ, I was always in the kind of top track in the school. That didn't do anything negative to me.
Right.
But to create a person-by-person hierarchy
Oh.
where you had this precarious position at the top that you had to protect,
yeah.
that did it to me.
That is very, very interesting. And it makes me wonder, did it actually plant the seed for what made you think later on in life about the growth mindset?
I think so, because I wondered why some kids or adults, why did some of them take on these challenges, roll with the punches, come back from failure strongly? I knew that wasn't me,
Really?
because of how I had wanted to make sure I succeeded, not make mistakes, not fail. I felt that I was lacking this initiative, this forging into challenges, this rolling with the punches. That's what I wanted to figure out.
Well, then when you think back now, how did that progression take you from, say, well, first of all, did it lead to a specific decision about what you wrote your PhD thesis on?
Yes.
Okay, so let's start
Yeah,
there.
my PhD thesis was about helping kids. Well, what's the difference between kids who cope well with failure and kids who don't? And how can you teach kids to be resilient in the face of failure? This is what I'm still studying. It led to the discovery of the mindsets.
I see. And when you think about a growth mindset, what are the impacts of that on individual students?
Yeah. What we've discovered is that each mindset creates a whole world, a whole psychological world for students. In a fixed mindset, where you have only a certain fixed amount of this precious commodity called intelligence, you want to keep showing it to advantage. You don't want to look dumb. Setbacks, criticisms can be devastating because they impugn your intelligence. And in the face of these kinds of events, you may avoid challenges or pull back from difficulty, limiting your accomplishment. In more of a growth mindset, it's the idea that intellectual abilities can be developed through hard work, through good strategies, through input and support from others. Then your job becomes to get smarter through taking on challenges, through learning from failures and feedback. And mistakes, setbacks become a natural part of learning, promoting further learning and the growth of abilities.
So what's the impact then of having an entire faculty in a school, or the majority of the faculty in a school have a growth mindset?
Well, a fantastic study came out a month ago by a former student of ours here. She studied STEM professors who had a fixed mindset or a growth mindset, and what happened to the students in their courses. The STEM professors who espoused a fixed mindset, first of all, said things in class like, if it isn't easy for you, you don't belong here. These are diverse students. They could be freshmen. They're coming from all kinds of different backgrounds. And this professor is saying, if it isn't easy for you, you don't belong here. Professors with more of a growth mindset said things like, everybody here is capable of doing well, and we'll work with you until that happens. When Mary Murphy and her team looked at how students fared in those STEM courses, she found first everybody, majority students, so whites and Asians, and underrepresented minority students, Black, Hispanic students, everybody did better in the growth mindset classrooms. But the important thing was in the growth mindset classrooms, the achievement gap was cut in half.
Wow.
It gives you the chills when you think about how these kinds of attitudes, beliefs, statements, on the practices on the part of these instructors can have such a profound effect on the students.
That's amazing. It's interesting because we've been doing some work with students at lower grade levels with the Unified School District in Santa Barbara and introducing them to Shakespeare. And we've done it with preschool kids in a storytelling mode, and then we've done it with fifth graders, and then we've done it with high school students. And the results have turned the district supervisor from being a STEM guy to insisting that the district retain a visual and performing arts position that was going to be eliminated.
Wonderful.
Have you seen that, therefore, working, whether it's STEM or the humanities and social sciences?
We have a line of research led by a former postdoc of mine, Paul O'Keefe, that looks at mindsets about interest.
Wow.
He asked the question, do some people think interests are fixed? You come with them, you just have to discover them, and once you discover them, you're done? Or do other people think interests can be developed? And he found a really important difference. Yes, some people believed one, some believed the other. The people who believed in fixed interest were less willing to reach across areas or disciplines. If they said they were math people, they were not interested in an article on literature. If they said they were humanities people, they were not interested in a STEM-related article. And he just completed a study teaching college freshmen, a growth mindset about interest, and found that they reached across areas in their course taking.
And what age group was he working?
He was looking mostly at college age.
Right. Okay. So even though they might have come into those colleges with...
That's right.
Yeah, they could...
With a commitment to one area or the other. In
Right.
this case, it was a college where most of them were committed to humanities. But when they learned that interests could be developed, they their interest in math went up, and their course taking in math went up.
That's terrific.
Isn't that
so
exciting?
In a liberal arts college.
Yes, and we have no reason to believe that this wouldn't apply to younger people also.
That's great. I hope somebody does it. It would be wonderful to see that happening,
Yes.
and in the high school level as well.
Yes, and especially in today's interdisciplinary world where the innovations, the great innovations, come from reaching across areas.
That's true. So how is it that you've been able to take and turn what is really sort of a landmark research arena on growth mindset into national programs that affect teachers and parents and most importantly students? I mean,
Yes.
sort of reminds me of La Sistema in Venezuela, but on an even bigger scale potentially.
People, educators, students seem to be hungry for another way of thinking about students, and students themselves seem to be hungry for a way to understand their brains and how it works, how they work. We, with the full support of CASBS and with the leadership of David Yeager, a former student of mine, the incredible work of Ellen Konar, who brought us together with the center, which housed our early work on the national study and funded fellows and scholars. We embarked on this national study of a growth mindset program distributed in schools to over 14,000 students. Half were in the growth mindset group, half were in the control group. We were interested in whether this was even possible, whether we could take mindset program that had been distributed over 8 in-person sessions and turn it into a less than 1 hour computer-delivered module, and whether that could possibly have any kind of enduring effect on students.
Was that the Brainology?
It was a new, shorter, a new, shorter program.
And what's it called?
It's called the Growth Mindset Module.
Okay.
Because we're distributing it no cost, it didn't need a jazzy name. So we now have results from that study, and we're really excited about those results.
That is very good to know, but if you want to take it to every school kid in America, you may need to come up with a jazzy name.
We are prepared to do that.
Okay, all right. I'm reassured. I believe, and as a publisher, that titles make a difference.
I absolutely agree. In fact, I had kind of technical, ugly names for the growth and fixed mindset, but when I wrote mindset, I knew a user-friendly name was necessary.
I'm glad to find that out. I once told Malcolm Gladwell that I thought he was the title king.
Yes, yes, yes.
And you
Agreed.
could be the title queen.
Happy to do that.
Were you surprised by the reactions that followed the publication of Mindset and its subsequent editions? And if so, in what ways?
Well, first I have to tell you, I was very surprised at the initial reaction, which was 0.
What?
The first year, it hardly sold any books, and most of the books that were distributed came back to the publisher.
Wow. It's hard for me to believe that.
It was a time before many academics wrote books and showed that they could be popular, and for that reason, I believe the publisher did not put a lot of publicity behind it. But then, I think in retrospect, this is even more gratifying. Through word of mouth, blogs, journalists who got excited, the word started spreading. The sales of Mindset skyrocketed and have remained at that level.
That's great.
10 years later.
That's great. That's really
Yeah,
great.
so that is extraordinarily gratifying. The idea that people, it's tremendously gratifying to know that people were interested in these ideas and that they felt they, their students, their relatives, their friends have all benefited from the ideas.
And where do you think that will take you in your future work?
My future work is proceeding on two different levels. Well, we are continuing, but I'm also going in a neuroscience direction.
That's very interesting.
A fantastic neuroscientist at Stanford in the medical school came to me and he said, I want to find the growth mindset neural circuit. And I thought, really? But when we talked about it, I saw exactly what he meant. And I also had been developing ideas about how the brain works in relation to mindset. So we now have a thriving collaboration.
Oh, that's great.
And we want to see whether a growth mindset kind of strengthens certain circuits in the brain that support learning and that support neural plasticity through life.
And would that be something that would be studied over a longitudinal period?
Yes. And the second thing I'm very interested in is not just the lone person developing they or themselves, but people collaborating, people as pieces of a larger puzzle, working to move their organization forward, their societies forward for the common good.
And how would that play out?
We'll see, but with Mary Murphy, we've been studying organizational cultures, comparing fixed mindset to growth mindset cultures. And what we see is fascinating because when people are operating in a growth mindset culture, they perceive more diversity. They feel supported for teamwork, for team innovation, rather than kind of a focus on lone achievement, lone genius, lone everything. So what does that synergy do for us? And how can we bring it back to the broader society?
Well, I'd be happy to volunteer our company as a guinea pig anytime you want.
So I know it's kind of a high-level hope, but I am determined to work toward that.
Great. Well, Carol, this has been the most fascinating conversation, and I really enjoyed getting to know you. But I also want to do my job and to, on behalf of SAGE and CASBS, present you with this award. And we will be doing a public presentation in just about an hour. But be careful, it's heavy. And I hope it will sit gracefully in your office and remind you of this conversation and this evening.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure to meet you, and I'm very grateful for this wonderful, wonderful honor. Thank you.
You're welcome.